Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And I'm excited for our guest today. Lori Saitz is the CEO of Zen Rabbit and hosts the podcast Fine is a four-letter word. She's an award-winning writer, speaker, and broadcaster, and been a nationally recognized expert in using gratitude and meditation to manifest your goals faster. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Teri. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So for folks that don't know you yet, bring us up to speed, how you got onto this path and this track and where you're at today.
Yeah, it kind of started when in 2003, I started my first business. It was called Zen Rabbit Baking Company. And I was making and marketing what became known as the gratitude cookie. And this was based on a family recipe, kind of a cross between a butter and a sugar cookie, and creating it as a tool for businesses to say thank you to their clients and to people who sent them referrals. Ran that business for 11 years, couldn't scale it quite the way I wanted to, shut it down, and traveled a couple of different paths before I arrived here. And now I'm working with primarily women in midlife, but not just men have expressed interest in working too, on helping them rediscover their purpose and figure out what's next in this next season of life. You know, we're walking around saying everything's fine when it's really not fine.
You know, I hear you. And I think that's just one of the, we are such a culture where that is like the four-letter word. We use it so much in this culture, right?
Yeah.
Just being like, I'm fine. I ask my daughter all the time, like when she gets home from school, how was school? Fine. Like, mama, just, give me something, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about, what has been kind of your biggest barrier, challenge, block that you've had to overcome on your path to where you're at today?
I'm sure other of your guests have answered in a similar fashion, is that it's my own beliefs, getting past whatever beliefs were instilled in me when I was growing up or somewhere along the way of not being, I don't know. I can't say I would consciously recognize not being worthy, but if you look at the outcomes, then you have to track it back to, okay, there's something there that says wasn't worthy, not deserving, not providing enough value to make the money. I mean, that's kind of what happened with that first business. Why wasn't it scalable the way I wanted to? Why wasn't I seeing the success that I had worked for and expected?
I like that you point that out, because I've shared this a lot with the work that I do and with the clients, is like, we can look at what's happening in our life, what is showing up, what's the results, what's the outcomes that are happening right now in our life. And that will give us a pretty good indicator of what we've been generating and creating in our mind, because everything gets created twice, once in our mind and our imagination, and the second into physical form. And so we can look at what's working, what's not working right now. And we have a pretty good indicator of what is going on in our mindset that's been creating that and contributing to that. So I think that's a great way of looking at it, and a reminder of, we are these powerful creators. And so what is it that's not been working?
Yeah, I think that really that most important or most significant block or obstacle was not 100% realizing or buying into or taking action on the fact that you can only change what's showing up externally, you can only change that internally, not by working harder
Yes.
and working longer and working more and stressing more. That's not what changes your outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you 100%. So what has been, I don't know, like your biggest, maybe like life lesson in all of this?
Yeah. There are so many lessons. I think as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest lessons and things that I share with new entrepreneurs is that you absolutely have to have like your posse, your peer strategy group, the people who have your back, because it gets hard and it doesn't matter how much internal work you're doing. There are going to be days where you're like, or weeks, maybe sometimes months, I can't do this anymore. And you need those people to support you. And you also need them to help you celebrate your successes. And nobody understands you as well as entrepreneurial peers. Like anybody who's not an entrepreneur is going to be like, why don't you just quit and get a job?
Yeah.
And they mean well, but they just don't get it.
Yeah. And it can be lonely if you do not have
Yes.
that entrepreneurial, rock star team with you. It can be really lonely. And I remember very early on, having these conversations with my friends. They were not entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's no rightness or wrongness to that. It's just the path that we choose. We are different in all different ways. And I would have these conversations and that would be the response, like, well, then just quit, or why are you doing this, or blah, blah, blah. And then I just didn't feel the support. Like I didn't feel the support. But when I found my team and I found my support system, they're like, well, of course it's going to get hard because you're going to go to the next level. So are you going to give up? Like, and then they would question me and they would talk to me and then they would challenge me and then they would cheer me on and they would give me hugs and they would cry with me, and it was like, okay, you guys get me, right? Like, and I mean, I'm just telling you that it's just such a profound way, because there's been multiple times in my own personal journey where I've had to, just say, okay, I have this kind of like almost come to Jesus moment where it's like, okay, am I going to continue this? And how do I support, and how do I find that support outside of myself? Because I am having a moment of meltdown, I'm having a moment of, how am I going to get this done? And usually for me, it's been like I get trapped in the how. And I know that when I'm trapped in the how, I'm not allowing, right? And so it's like, okay. Oh, I forgot. We think we're these like, 3-dimensional beings, but in reality, we're like in this 5-dimensional piece and we forget how powerful we really are. And so usually that's been my indicator, is like when I get trapped, it's usually around the how. And I'm like, okay, just kidding. The how is not, the how is not up to me. I got to release the how. I got to release the outcomes. I got to release the results and get back into me, and get back into my pure positive energy, my potency, my, purpose, my passion, and re-tap back into that, so.
Yeah. I used to say that the most important characteristic of an entrepreneur was perseverance or persistence. I don't believe that anymore. That there's that Winston Churchill quote of never, ever, 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 ever give up. Well, sometimes it's not necessarily giving up, but maybe pivoting or taking a different path. Because if you keep banging your head against that same wall, it's not productive, useful.
I think that's an important point, because I think, yes, there are things that we have to persist against, and work through, because that's our path, and be like, okay, that's the challenge. That's the barrier. That's the resistance. Yeah. And there's a part of this that's like, okay, I'm scared. And I joke that I used to be horrifically terrified of public speaking, but I realized that was a path that I had to go through. That was the resistance that I had to move through and go through. And so knowing when you're banging your head against the wall versus knowing when, like, this is my purpose and my passion, and like I have to go through it. Right. And so knowing those, and that's not always like an easy answer of
exactly.
Like, okay,
there are questions that you can ask yourself, or that your peer strategy group could ask you to help you work through that. But yes, I think, the blinders never look, well, okay, but what if there's an open window over here? This door's shut, but there's a window open. Like, they can reposition you to see it.
And I think when we were tying back into your support system, like when we get in the zone of like we will tend to put our filters up. We will put, and for those that are watching this on or listening to it, I'm like putting my hands up and putting blinders on, right? Because I think sometimes we'll get blinded by, because we're so focused on the outcome, we're so focused on the end result versus being open again and bringing ourselves back open. But that's the importance of having a team with you and a support system that they can be like, you have those blinders on and you can only see one possibility,
Right.
And I just did a free webinar a couple of days ago, and I said, we think that the universe is A plus B equals or A plus B equals C, but in reality, it's A plus 9 equals purple.
Right.
So
Good
when
one.
we start to open ourselves up, it may not make sense to us on a cognitive level or on a conscious level, but when we start to look back at it, we're like, oh, I get it now. So yeah, so keeping ourselves open to. And I think sometimes that just goes back to recognizing, like, when am I feeling trapped, or when am I feeling limited, or when am I feeling small? When am I feeling insignificant? Because that's a good indicator.
Yeah.
I'm shrinking versus expanding, right?
Right. Right. And then tying into, I talk a lot about gratitude and meditation and visualization, giving yourself the space to get quiet and hear your own inner voice, your own inner truth. And so often we get caught up in hearing everything outside of us or in keeping ourselves distracted that we don't go internal. We don't allow ourselves that space and that quiet time to hear, which would then, help you from spinning.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, like, how often are we spending time in like spin mode versus how often are we spending time in gratitude mode or meditation mode or, being expansive mode or being creative or, all these other things that serve us? Because I think sometimes, especially with folks that, again, everything in moderation. Okay. But when we are, especially now with everything that's kind of feeling like it's like blowing up on so many different levels, and there's chaos and turmoil, and like if we're watching the media or if we're engaging in those conversations, it does take us away from the time that we can be spending on creating what is it that we do truly desire, right? Like how much time, and I'm just going to invite the listeners to think about that. It's like, how much time are we spending time in like trauma drama versus how much time are we spending in, growth and expansion, and that usually is an indicator, right? Like we can have faster results, like you said, if we're staying in the place of gratitude, a place of, exploration, a place of discovery, a place of, curiosity, a place of, expansion, right? And playing with positive, playing with possibilities,
Right.
So
yeah,
so
exactly. It's funny. I hear a lot people saying, I don't have time to meditate. Okay. Okay. Let's unpack this for a second.
Yeah.
Because the time that you spend, let's say it's even just 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes a day makes you more effective, more focused, more productive. So you're investing 15 minutes and something that might take you 3 hours if you didn't meditate might only take you an hour. So now you've just bought yourself 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'll invest in that. That seems like a good return.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that sometimes it's a practice we have to, I think it's counterintuitive, right? It's super counterintuitive to think like, wait, I can relax and take care of myself, and that's going to give me further and faster results. Wait, what? Because in our culture, it's about the grind, it's about the push, it's about the force, it's about the, the hustle, right? And so if we can step out of that and just play with this. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to put up a challenge for all of our listeners. Okay, I'm going to invite you to play with this. Okay, so I'm going to let Lori, share so what's a challenge they can do for this a week, 7 days to play with what? What can they?
Let's play with gratitude.
Okay.
And the challenge is because we're all human, so we do complain and criticize.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you catch yourself complaining or criticizing, add on to whatever it is you're complaining about, but specifically using the word but.
Yes.
But I'm grateful for.
Yes. I literally was doing prepping for a Facebook Live, and we talked about when to use a but, because usually butts get a bad rep.
Right. Right.
Exactly what we were talking about is like using this as a is in there. So your mom always said, don't use a but, but this is when you should use a but. Okay.
Intentionally, we are using that word.
Yes, we're going to use that word. I love this. So for the next 7 days, okay, for whenever you listen to this, and for the rock stars out there that want to take it to the next, 14 days, 21 days, 2 months, please, at your heart's content, because once you start doing this, it's like, it starts to shift and we start to catch ourselves. And the more we get out of, because our brain's going to find the evidence. So if negative thoughts are going to find negative evidence, positive thoughts are going to find positive evidence. And guess what? When we're playing with gratitude, being in that place and space, which is a high vibration, is actually going to help create more powerful thoughts. It's going to help us find more gratitude. It's going to help us stay in that place for longer and stronger. So for 1 week, we all got that. When we have, like you said, criticism or a judgment or of ourselves or anyone else, a complaint, using it, but, and then adding into what you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be something gigantic. Okay. It could be, I'm grateful that I get to meet Lori today. I'm grateful that, I'm in my house where it's nice and warm and it's snowing outside right now. We were just talking about that. So play with this, because I think this is I think sometimes we want to make it more difficult than it really has to be. Like let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. Let's not overcomplicate things.
Yeah. You can even put little notes like on your mirror or on your dashboard or whatever that says, but I'm grateful for. So it keeps reminding you to add this on, because it's creating a new habit.
Yeah.
And creating new neural pathways.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that reminder of like putting in Post-it notes wherever, because that creates like an anchor and it becomes a reminder. And then it's like, oh, okay, yes. But, and here it is. Right. And so I'm going to invite people to play with this and, reach out to us and let us know how this challenge goes for you, because I just, it doesn't take much to shift our patterns and behaviors, and if we're committed to, doing something easier. And I think, everyone has had, for a lot of people, 2019 started it off with a bang. Leading into 2020, it was kind of like a big, I would cuss on here, but I'm going to keep it clean. A big SNS, and a big show. And then, even into 2021, it's been like, okay, now we're going to like the SNS show recovery mode. Right. And so it's been an SNS show. Right. And so, going into 2022, which is powerful, because I was just talking to someone yesterday. It's a 6-year. And so 6-year just means like we get to, implement everything that we learned in the last year. So it's going to be really rich. It's going to be so rich and delicious as far as what we get to create. Right. And so powerful stuff. And so this can be one of those tools that we take into the new year and really set us up for success. So Lori, you are, what else can you share with the listeners that could be a tip or a tool that they can take into this new year, that can really set them up for success?
Yeah, well, let's go into the meditation and visualization thing. Like that I mentioned 15, 20 minutes, but it doesn't even have to be that long. You can settle your nervous system in 2 minutes by putting your hands on your heart and just in taking breaths and focusing on your breath, and focus on your breath as if you're breathing through your heart, and just settle yourself down. Whatever situation, when you're standing in the middle of a chaos situation or some kind of, whatever's going on around you, just ground yourself by putting your hand on your heart and just taking a few intentional deep breaths in and out. And that's it. Close your eyes for the time you're doing it or not, but just that breathing.
And that really allows us to disconnect from the chaos.
Yeah.
And, again, when we were talking about earlier, it's like what we think about, we bring about. Right. And so, what we're putting out there, what we're spending our time on, right? And so if we're spending our time in this chaotic moment, or spending this time in this, intense energy that's not serving us or is not supporting us, by taking those breaths and we're disengaging. We're
Right.
disengaging from that chaotic energy, and we're re-engaging with our pure positive energy, right? We're re-engaging with what we're here, what we're doing, like what
Right.
we how we were brought into this world,
Yeah.
which
And then as soon as you're
powerful.
done with that and you open your eyes or you step back into the situation, you're able to make more logical decisions, not based on and respond instead of react. And
Yes.
not from an emotional place. And you're going to make better decisions. You're going to have better relationships because you're not flying off the handle. Everything improves when you take those 2 minutes to just stop.
Seriously, such juicy stuff, right? And we're talking about 2 minutes. We're not
Yeah.
talking about 2 years here, folks. We're talking about 2 minutes. And so committing to just, re-engaging in this really powerful way. And that's just
Yeah.
reconnecting with who we are. And I truly believe that we came here as pure positive energy. And that is what we get to, that's always our default. If we
Yeah.
allow it to be our default, and if we allow it, just giving ourselves the time to reconnect with it, right?
Right,
So
right.
powerful.
We have to replug into it. And even if you're not in the midst of chaos, let's say you're on the verge of making a big decision,
Mm-hmm.
stop, just check in. Okay. All right. And now you can move forward with more confidence.
I absolutely love this. Such good, yummy nuggets that are tangible, that are concrete and easy to do, right? Absolutely easy to do as we go into and move into this 2022, because I'm telling people, like, we got to keep jazzed up, because
Mhm.
amazing things are happening for not just me and Lori, but everybody that's on this planet. Juicy things are coming for us, and just, setting the expectation that that's what we're going to be receiving, right? And playing in
Yes.
that place of possibilities of just receiving it, right? Okay, Lori, my friend, you are just a delightful being. So where can people find more about you and connect?
Yeah. My company is Zen Rabbit. So zenrabbit.com is the website. And I hang out a lot on Instagram under Zen_Rabbit, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Powerful tools, that we can be moving into the world, to the new year with. And so thank you for being just a shining bright light, sharing your message with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Teri.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.